Hello, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about XRP, my prediction for where I see this digital asset fitting in to the next version of our financial system, and why specifically any discussion around the market cap of crypto is kind of a silly, unproductive discussion. Hello, I'm Molly Elmore. Today we're going to talk about tokenization and XRP and how they all fit together. So, one phrase that has come up a lot in understanding kind of the future of money, crypto, digital assets, how they fit together is this idea that everything will be tokenized. And if you're not familiar with that concept, I'm just going to try to explain it briefly. We'll just use gold as an example. So, let's say I have a bunch of gold and I want to trade it with you. Well, I had a couple of options. One is I could have gone to where you are physically with my bars of gold and we could agree on a price and I could sell you the gold. It's kind of how it does in the olden days. But people now in this global era want to be able to trade gold without having to be in the physical same place. And actually, gold is really heavy. So there's a desire, I think, to trade gold without having to move it ever. I might have some vault somewhere that it sits and I might sell it to you and you might just keep it in that same vault. Why was there any need for the physical gold to be moved anyway when we're just sort of moving ownership? That's been an issue for a while. So this idea of paper gold came to be. And paper gold is simply a certificate that says I own a bunch of gold, or I own, maybe the certificate is for each bar. It's like this certificate is for a bar of gold that I own. The problem is that people could lie and they could sell these certificates or loan these certificates to lots of people that and essentially lend more paper gold than they actually had regular gold. If you watched my video about how the price of gold is manipulated, this has been a big problem, and why the gold price can be manipulated is because central banks have the ability to lend out more gold than they actually have using this sort of paper gold thing. It's kind of like an IOU, and nobody's keeping tabs on exactly how many IOUs have you issued for a particular bar of gold. So if you wanted to fix that problem, you could require like a barcode on each bar of gold with an ID number, and then you would create a token that lived on the blockchain, which is kind of like a database entry saying, all right, bar gold number one is ID number 12345, and this is now owned by wallet number ABCD. And that is sort of the essence of tokenizing, is you're saying, okay, we're going to take inventory, we're going to quantify the number of units of the thing, which is gold in this case. We're going to assign ownership via the blockchain, and it's more public. Sometimes these are on private ledgers, but it's more public than my wallet where I have these pieces of paper, or my secret vault where nobody can come in. You now have this database, and the idea with sort of distributed ledger, which is what blockchain things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP are on, is that there's a bunch of separate groups who kind of are tasked with maintaining this database to ensure that nobody's cheating and double spending and whatever. So there's like integrity in the database by having it be distributed, so no one person can change the database without anyone else knowing. All right, so back to gold. So now all of my gold is tokenized. I have a digital asset that represents my gold, and we have a mechanism to ensure that only one asset is issued for every X units, every unit of gold. I don't know if it would be grams or pound, it doesn't really matter. There'll be a decision made that 1 gram of gold is worth one token, and then as many grams of gold as you would have tokens. Now, there's challenges this because you have to still make sure that even though I have the digital asset in my wallet, that physical gold wasn't taken and given a new barcode. So there's some challenges here to ensure that the digital assets and the physical assets match up. So let's just assume for this argument's sake that is solved. I'm very confident it will be solved. We are seeing that the gold industry is already pushing towards tokenization. And real estate is another interesting example. Like you have a deed that says you own a piece of property. That deed is a piece of paper. And when you go to buy property, if you've ever done this, you have to do like a title search and make sure there's like nobody else accidentally owns that property. And this transfer of this deed is kind of done in an old fashioned way. Well, what if that deed was an NFT and it lived on the blockchain? And that way, when I buy the house, that asset, the NFT, gets transferred over to me. So now I have sort of proof in the database that I own this real estate. It also could be possible that you and I, and maybe 100 other people, could go in and buy real estate together. Maybe we decide we want to buy a mall or something. And I can't afford to buy an entire mall. So me and my 100 friends are going to go in on this mall and there'll be, sometimes you can have an NFT issued where like they're not all totally unique, where the bunch of them are the same, but there's a finite supply of them. So maybe we all get, it's like shares of stock kind of, we all get a bunch of NFTs, or we get an NFT that represents a bunch of ownership in this shopping mall. And that is how real estate could be tokenized. So you could have multiple people own that piece of property on the blockchain without having to have like a company set up where we're all shareholders in this company. So this list of things that goes on could be infinite, all of the things that could be tokenized. Oil could be tokenized. Um, Real estate, we talked about that. All precious metals, your diplomas, credentials you've earned, like anything that's like a certificate could be issued for, or you own in some capacity could be tokenized. I don't think things like your clothes will be tokenized, or things that you don't sort of hold as an asset or trade for value. I think it's really limited to those types of things. All right, so let's say that now every asset that's worth something is now tokenized. This is a way to get out of the debt-based system, because right now money is debt. Money is created when a bank issues a loan. That loan is sometimes created totally out of nothing. Sometimes just a percentage of it is created. But regardless, with loans in the banking system now, new money is created. Similar with bonds. When a government issues a bond, they're essentially creating money in that process. So this IOU system has problems because the people who have the power to print the money have an unfair advantage. Sometimes this is referred to as the Cantillon effect, like the closer you are to the money printer. And sometimes people just label the Fed as the money printer or central bank, but honestly, commercial banks are money printers. That's where a lot of the money comes from. And anybody who is issuing loans in fractional reserve banking is creating money. So it kind of gives an unfair advantage to the banks in countries that have strong reserve currencies, that they have, a leg up. So if I am a country that doesn't have a powerful currency, but I make lots of stuff that's valuable, I'm at a disadvantage in some capacity. And so this idea that turning assets into money is a neat idea. It's kind of like a return to the gold standard. It's just not just gold. It's a whole bunch of different assets. Anything that your country has or makes that could be considered value could be now turned into a tokenized asset. And these tokenized assets then become the medium of exchange. So, this is sort of the heart of the BRICS reserve currency idea. If you watch, I did a video on that as well. I'll put that in the description. So the BRICS reserve currency, each nation could collect, I guess, up to 20 assets that they have. It could be oil or silver or gold or something that is considered a value asset that's traded, even some kinds of food, although I don't know what happens with food that goes bad. But you have these assets, and these assets then become the reserves. It's kind of like your collateral of sorts. And then you are issued minted tokens that represent that value. And then instead of me trading you a barrel of oil, like literally for a bushel of corn, we just swap these tokens. It becomes just a new way of exchanging value that isn't based on debt. I think we've seen that the debt problem leads to inflation, it leads to corruption, and it leads to being able to like influence politics and education in the medical establishments in ways that I don't think were ever intended originally. Maybe they were, but they're not really serving interests of humanity all that well. So let's go with this idea then that everything of value will be tokenized. We're already seeing BRICS pushing towards it. I just watched a video this morning. A congressman from West Virginia is pushing for the dollar to go back to the gold standard. I've been hearing for a while that lots of people would love this idea of going back to the gold standard, not because necessarily gold is the only asset, but it's more sound money where you can't just print it out of nothing. Well, what about nations that don't have gold? Could their value be represented a different way? Yeah. So why not silver? Why not diamonds? So this is where I think the idea that a wider array of assets could become tokenized and exchanged for value in the marketplace. Now, one thing I do believe, and this might be sort of wishful thinking, but it's also something I've even heard Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse say, is that nations are not in a hurry to give up their sovereign currency. If I'm a country like South Africa or Brazil or China or Russia or even the United States, why would I no longer want to have my own currency? I just did a video in my private locals community about colonization and how these sort of European aristocrats kind of pushing the Great Reset, they want to colonize everybody. They used to have this awesome system for them where they owned all these other countries in in Africa, the Middle East, United States, South America. They were colonies, and when you own a colony, you have a sweet setup, right? You don't have to do anything, and the colony has to give you a lot of stuff. Maybe you initially set them up with some money, but you probably got that money from a different colony. Like, there's not a lot of integrity, in my opinion, in the colony model. But the people that would potentially be in charge of a colony love that model. It's feudalism, where they are the lord of the manor, everybody else is a subject, a peasant, a serf, and everybody works and gives a huge percentage of their earnings to the lord of the manor. It's not all that different, to be honest, than the tax system, where a lot of that money gets stolen, whatever. Don't want to get into that now. Regardless, I do believe that no nation is in a hurry to no longer have control of their own national currency. What incentive is there for a non-compromised nation to want to be subservient to the United Nations or the IMF or the World Bank or another European-led colonizer? Why would they want to do it? I wouldn't want to do it. I'd want to keep my own currency. I want to be independent. I want to have negotiating power. I want to have leverage. I want to have the ability to buy stuff in the global marketplace in exchanging my resources that my country has. So I don't think we're going to have this one world currency idea. I don't think XRP is going to be one world currency. I don't think there will be a global CBDC. Simply because to get every single nation on board for something of that scale, it would mean there's really no more nations then. Now, I think the one world government crowd would love that. That's kind of up their alley. But why would another nation go along with that? I think looking at incentives in geopolitics is key. You can understand why someone would want to do something, how they would benefit from it. It's key. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some leaders who are compromised and are willing to take a payoff to sell out their own country. Sadly, that happens. I think there's been leaders in Africa in history who have done that, which sucks for the citizens. I think in other places in the world, that has also been the case, where a compromised leader is put into place. They do bad things, bad for the citizens. They then go into exile with their payoff. Let's just hope that not every country is going to be subject to leaders of that type. So that means that then the one world currency idea is bound to fail because nations want to retain their own ability to negotiate and have leverage and trade. So that said, go back to what we said. Everything's tokenized. Nations have their own currency. Now, even the BRICS reserve currency doesn't mean that nations in the BRICS alliance don't have their own currency. All it means is now they have a way to get this like trading token that is, it's a wholesale token of sorts, where the BRICS bank will issue this token and countries use it to trade with each other. It doesn't mean there's no more Russian ruble or Chinese yuan. It just means there's now this additional trading currency. So let's look at Ripple's ODL, which is essentially a liquidity pool. It's a market for trading, kind of trade, swapping currencies, exchanging currencies, kind of like the Forex market, where if I've got a whole bunch of dollars and I need some euros, I go to a foreign exchange broker trader and I swap one for the other. And if you think about this, if everything's tokenized, all the value, and now countries are swapping value with each other for the purposes of trade, this essentially would be the new Forex, right? And Forex market now is huge. So I just took this screenshot today, but I guess the data is old. But right now, 6.6 trillion are swapped on Forex. And the 2021, so a year ago, that market annual was 2.4 quadrillion. That's a lot of money. That's just Forex. That's just currencies being exchanged one and the other. So imagine if Ripple's product using XRP now becomes this global exchange for all of the money, all of the currencies, which are now not debt based, they are now tokenized assets that are now representing money. That becomes what money is. And people are able to exchange this money in a marketplace. Well, if I'm going to keep my sovereign currency, I don't need your sovereign currency. I need my own. Either we have one common that we're using to buy stuff, or we simply use this exchange where if I want to sell you some widgets and you have your currency and you want to pay me in that currency, but I don't need that currency, we go to Ripple's ODL and we do a quick swap. So I can swap your currency for mine. Boom, I get payment and I send you the widgets. At a minimum, let's just say that this is now just the market for the ODL. That means, let's just do some quick math here. So 2.4 quadrillion, it's a lot of zeros. My online calculator won't let me do that many zeros. So we had to sort of say that 2.4 quadrillion, I think I did this right, multiply by, I think I might even have these zeros wrong, is 2,400 trillion, which is 2.4 million billion. Hopefully this is right. If I'm not, I will redo it. So let's just, even for argument's sake, say that's right. So 2.4 million billions, because we have 100 billion XRPs issued, that would mean that if XRP was used to do the entire Forex market, that would put one XRP unit, it would have to be $24,000 per unit to support that level of value exchange. That's a lot. And this is why, when people talk about the market cap of crypto, let's even call the market cap of crypto $1 trillion. It's below that right now. It's just totally irrelevant because that's like a tiny little test case for the Forex market. And I don't know if every country in the world is going to decide to use Ripple's ODL, but there's a potential that they could. I don't know of any other entity that has built an exchange that is designed to support replacing the Forex market. Now, it's possible you have more than one Forex market. Nobody says there couldn't be a competitor, but the XRP token has proven over a decade to be very fast, cheap to transact. Gas fees are very low, and it's not been hacked or anything. And so it's kind of proven that it's good tech. Does that mean that another competitor can come and offer something else? No, but I don't see another competitor who could compete at this point. That doesn't necessarily mean Ripple will dominate the market forever, but I think when we have this transition, everything is tokenized and Forex moves to the blockchain for trading, because this could be done 24/7. You wouldn't have to have these markets being open and closed. It could be done using DeFi so that these, any kind of paperwork or administrative stuff required to settle transactions, that would be kind of go away. Now, the thing that's key to remember with this sort of 24,000 per unit is that I'm just talking about Forex. We said in the beginning of this video, when everything is tokenized, that will include real estate. It'll include derivatives. It will include stocks, bonds, energy, and gold. All the things that have value that could be traded as money in the global marketplace. So I'm way underrepresenting by the 24K. I don't even know the global value of real estate. Like I could look that up, but my point was simply that it's going to be a big number. I don't really care what that big number is, to be totally honest, because for me, and if it was only 24,000, I would be like beside myself. I'm not saying that it will be that, by the way. I'm not a psychic. This is just my personal prediction that could totally be wrong. But if you look at this trend of everything being tokenized and everything moving to the blockchain, and potentially the big change would be to get out of debt-based money toward asset-based money. Gold is a part of it, metals are a part of it, but I think it's much bigger than that. And now nations, instead of issuing loans and trading these loans and charging interest off these loans, it would be a very new world where assets now become money. It's kind of a return to how it used to be, right? Debt is IOUs, and if you're good for it, that's okay. And that's why we have credit scores, because if you're going to be participating in the debt system, you've got to kind of prove that you're good for it and you'll pay it back. But we've gotten to this situation where some countries, including the US, have issued so much debt, there's just no way they can ever pay it back. So at a certain point, you're not good for it. And even if you are the country that can issue the reserve currency, you still have debt that you can't pay off. Now, there are some counter arguments to this sort of thesis, and one is that the US dollar is so entrenched in so many derivatives products and so many things that would be decades before this is unwound. And Martin Armstrong, whom I respect, I think he knows a lot about geopolitics and global finance, he doesn't think that some kind of change like this could happen very quickly. And he might be right. This could be a long-term evolution. It is also possible, though, that to try to move to this tokenized asset system slowly would be a mess. And it might be simpler if you literally turned one system off and woke up the next day and the new system was on. And that's sort of where the flip the switch idea comes into play. And certain groups have been talking for a couple of years about, like, it's sort of even Jim Rickards' ICE 9 thesis that everything gets locked and frozen and you kind of wake up chaos for a couple of days, but then this sort of new system is introduced. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but I do see the couple of things that I think are very clear. One is the movement towards tokenizing assets. I mean, this is actually kind of the heart of the UN's SDGs, their strategic development goals. They come across as this very nice environmental thing, but what they're essentially trying to do in that, Whitney Webb has done some great work on this, to tokenize the ocean, to tokenize air, to tokenize all of these natural resources that could potentially now become value that's traded. I hope we don't get to that point because that seems dark. This scenario, I think, is better for all of us as people, humanity. But regardless, if all the assets become tokenized, there needs to be systems to trade those assets. Why not use the blockchain? Why not use assets that have been trusted and proven to be effective? This has nothing to do with comparing XRP to Bitcoin or Ether. This is a specific use case where XRP would be used for transactions, for payments, and probably done at the nation level, at the bank to bank level. And it would allow these different independent nations with their own sovereign currencies to trade with one another without having to have, you don't even need like a global reserve currency anymore, because if everything gets priced, that's the one thing, is you have to figure out how things are priced. You could price everything in gold so that you all have common language and be like, oh, that's 100 units of something. If you need to think in money, like a bushel of corn might be $10. Like, if we want to negotiate on price, we have to have a common concept of value, which right now is dollars. Things could be priced in gold, but then the actual payments don't need gold. They could be done in this marketplace where I now know that 100 units of gold is a certain amount of my money, and that's a certain amount of your money, and we do this exchange using Ripple's ODL. So that is my prediction for the future of Ripple's products. Hopefully I'm right. I could very well be wrong. I don't work at Ripple. I just am a analyst who is interested in this stuff and a holder of XRP. So I would be beside myself. if this scenario played out. And if you have any questions or you don't agree with me or you kind of want to offer some other viewpoints, please do so in the comments. I welcome your feedback. Alrighty, I will see you in the next video.